Hi everyone, this is David Young with TY Woodcarving, and today taking a look at these new blades from Badger State Blades. Now, last year I did a video overview of a lot of the existing blades and handle shapes that were available at that time. These three new blade shapes just came out a few months ago. I was excited to get my hands on them. I've been using them a lot and I want to share them with you today. Now, if you're not familiar with the series, I really only am showing you knives that I would highly recommend that are good quality carving knives. So I definitely recommend these. My purpose is to let you get a good look at them and talk about some of the differences and how they compare to other knives so that you can make an informed decision about what's best for you. Now, I purchased each of these knives myself, but Ashton Brown over at Badger State Blades was kind enough to send me a promo code that I'd like to share with you all. So I will put that in the description. If you're interested, there's a code in the description that'll give you 10% off your order at Badger State Blades if you decide to order any of these there. You can order them in the particular size and handle and everything that you want straight from their website. And it's a great overall experience. So we're going to start by looking at the three blades together, what makes them similar and unique in the Badger State blade lineup, and then we'll look at each one in particular, and then I'll make a few notes about handles, but I would encourage you to go back and watch my first Badger State Blades videos for more info on that. All right, so here I've got the three blades laid out kind of side by side so we can look at them together and talk about what makes these special. So we have the Goldilocks on top, the Cliffhanger in the middle, and the Clipper on the bottom. Now, each of these are available in 1.5 inch, 1 3/4 inch, or 2-inch blade lengths. And I got one of each length just to try them out, but you can get any one of them in any of those 3 blade lengths. And what's notable about these is that all 3 of them have the same blade width, which is about 3/8 of an inch wide. So regardless of the length of the blade, which will vary, and the profile of the blade, which you can see is different and we'll talk more about, the width of each one of these blades is 3/8 of an inch. And you say, well, why is that notable? Well, it's notable because previously we had 2 options from Badger State Blades. We had the 1/2 inch wide roughing blade, and we had the 1/4 inch wide detail blades. Okay. So if I look at these 3 side by side, I'll use the Goldilocks one because they have similar tip profiles. We have 3 1/2 inch long blade, 1.5 inch long blades here with a 1/4 inch width, a 3/8 inch width, and a 1/2 inch width. Now, of course, the roughing blade with the larger width is going to be strong and less flexible for roughing cuts. Doesn't mean you can't do details with the tip. You absolutely can. That smaller detail blade is going to be a little more flexible and a little bit more delicate for detailed cuts. This Goldilocks blade is just right in between there. So it's stronger than the detail, a little finer than the roughing, and it just sits right in the middle there. And that width is going to be really important for all 3 of these blades, but they do perform a little bit differently based on the blade tip. So what you'll see in comparison there, we have the Goldilocks, which has kind of this rounded down to a point profile, very similar to the tips as you saw in the previous Badger State Blades. But then we have the Cliffhanger that slants down to a very fine point at the end, a dramatic angle. And then we have the Clipper on the right here, which takes a more gradual slant down and then clips down towards the end. So it's the Goldilocks on the left, the Cliffhanger in the middle, and the Clipper on the right. Okay, so all of them are 3/8 inch wide, and so they've got that nice balance between detail and roughing, and these blade profiles and tips are what varies. And so we'll take a look at each of these individually now and talk about how they perform on their own. All right, so let's take a look in more detail at the Goldilocks blade. So the Goldilocks blade, as you saw, has got a nice gradual slant down to the tip. And so that word Goldilocks is a perfect name for this blade. It is just right. It's just the perfect balance between roughing and detail, Of course, as a Badger State blade, you can see more in my other video, but it's high quality. It's the same level of sharpness and craftsmanship as the other blades that you're used to, or if you haven't tried them before, they're good, and you should check out my other video on them. But this Goldilocks blade is just a perfect balance of strong enough to make some nice big cuts, and that nice little point. You can see how narrow it gets there. All of these have very narrow blades, but it's not overly delicate. I'm careful, to some extent with all of my knives, but I'm not worried about the tip of this blade. It's not overly delicate, and I can really put some oomph into the cuts that I do here. This would just be a fantastic blade if you're getting one, and especially if you're a new carver starting out and you're trying to make a decision on maybe buying one blade that is just a little bit of a nicer blade. This would be a fantastic first knife or only knife if you had one, and I really like it in that 1.5 inch length for that kind of use. So yeah, I did want to give a comparison on these. So when I do comparisons, I just always want to make sure I remind folks that this is a compliment. I do this as a positive way in case you have other knives or you're thinking about other knives. And what I would compare this most closely to is an OCC 1.5 inch blade. And that's high praise from me. These is one of my favorite all-time blades. You can see the profile is a little bit different, but pretty similar. And when I think about the performance of this Goldilocks blade, I think about it very similar to the OCC 1.5 inch blade. It's got a very similar blade width. Obviously, these are both about the same length. And a similar profile down to the tip. That's just a good all-around carving knife, and one of my favorite knives. I've been using this Goldilocks one quite a bit over the last several weeks, and it performs very similarly. So I would say if that's another knife that you have or that you've been thinking about, this Goldilocks one compares very favorably with that. So that's the Goldilocks blade. Highly recommend it. Perfect middle of the road blade. Now next up I have the Cliffhanger blade. And the Cliffhanger blade has the most dramatic tip of the three. So the slope starts very early, comes down to a very fine point at the top. I have it in the 1 3/4 inch length here, but again, you can get it in 1.5 or 1.75, and this is a great all-around knife. Now, with that increased tip going down, that's the big difference between this and the Goldilocks we just looked at, and the the Clipper we'll look at in a minute. That this is the finest, most detailed tip of the three. There's a little bit more flex in this blade than the other two, I find, just because it's a little bit less wide, right? So you get a little bit more flex in the blade, and if you like that, that may be something that you want. I find that if I'm going to make roughing cuts on this, I'm really going to choke farther up and make sure I'm cutting a little bit further back on the blade for big cuts. And you can see it does fine with that. And I really want to leave the tip off when I'm making those bigger cuts. But I can make good clean cuts with the tip as well. I am going to be a little bit more careful with this tip. It's a fantastic detailed tip. I can feel the blade flex a little bit more for sure when I'm getting in there with this. But look at that, and look at how easily it'll just stab into the wood. Compare that, say, to the Goldilocks here. And it's not that the Goldilocks doesn't, but this Cliffhanger just sinks into the wood if you're going to make those detailed cuts. It just sinks really far in there, really easily, no resistance. And this would be great, for carving little details around eyes or things like that. So if you're looking for that combo where you can make really good roughing cuts further back on this blade, but the same level of detail that you would do with this little one, this is going to be a great blade for you. So the Cliffhanger blade, what I would actually compare this, and I wasn't expecting this as much, and again, I see this as good praise, is I would compare it kind of to a drake. And I know the drakes are really, really hard to get now, but a lot of people really prized these very fine tip details on the drake tips, and you can see that this cliffhanger is very similar. And so if you're somebody who had been trying to get your hands on one of these detailed drake blades, this is a 1.5 inch one. Uh, Actually, I think that this cliffhanger compares very well with this, and performs very similarly with a similar level of detail, similar level of flex and everything. So again, if you're looking for something that is going to do a little bit more on the detail than the Goldilocks, this cliffhanger is going to be the right one for you. So last, we're going to take a look at the clipper blade here. And where the Goldilocks blade had a more gradual slope down to the tip and the cliffhanger had that very dramatic tip, the clipper just lives right in between. And it's kind of the perfect in between on both of those. So especially in this 2-inch length that I've got, it works just fantastic for roughing cuts. And you can just take huge pieces off. And that length just lets me keep slicing all the way up. All the way up there. I can make big cuts even a little bit further up on the blade. It's got a little bit more flex than the Goldilocks, a little bit less flex than the cliffhanger. So kind of right in between there. But it's still got a point that will do some great detail. I can still really get that tip in there. It's got a little bit of flex as I'm going in for details like that. And so it is just a fantastic all-arounder. And to be honest, I have been reaching for this blade more than any other blade for the last month or two since I've gotten it. I just love it. I can do everything with it. The other two are also fantastic. If you're looking for a good all-arounder that's just a little bit more sturdy, the Goldilocks is probably it. If you're really looking for that fine detail option at the end of the blade, then the cliffhanger is probably it. The clipper is kind of right in between that. And for me, this has just been a fantastic blade. So the comparison I'm going to make here, the knife that I have that is most similar to this is probably this deep holler blade, which is close to a 2-inch blade as well. You can see the blade width is similar. The Badger State clipper comes down a little bit narrower, towards the top, whereas the deep holler one has a little bit more rounded. But they perform very similarly, and that's actually really high praise for me because I use this deep holler knife all the time, but I have been reaching more and more for this clipper lately, and it's just an absolutely fantastic knife. So that's kind of all three of them together and gives you a sense of which ones you might want to get. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the handles for a minute because I have two new handle shapes to me here. The most obvious one is probably on the Goldilocks here. I got a palm handle, and Badger State Blades just started offering the palm handle option. I love a palm handle knife, especially when I'm traveling. I kind of like it better than a folding knife in a lot of ways. And so this is just that standard Badger State blade handle. This is the standard handle, and it's just cut off a little bit shorter. So if you're looking for a good palm handle and a small handle in length, that'll still work really well for you. I've really been enjoying this one a lot. A little bit on the smaller side, but that's what a palm handle is for. This other one that I got in the cliffhanger blade has got is the Longhorn handle, and that was new for me. It's similar to the pistol grip handle that I've shown you before, but it doesn't have that bump in the middle. And I would say that it behaves pretty similarly to that. So it gives me a good option to pinch down on top, and I always like it when it fills down into the palm of my hand. It feels really good in there, and that would be one of my top picks for sure. And then I did get this clipper one in the pistol grip handle, and I did show some of those in my last Badger State video as well. And I just love this handle. I love the little bump there. It just helps me pinch up here, and I can really control it from the top for details and directing my cuts. But when I need to leverage down on the back, I've got that roll in the back of my palm. And this is just one of my favorite handle blades of all time. So anyway, a little bit on the handles. If you want to see some of the other handle options, you can watch my other Badger State blades video. I'll put a link to it in the description. So that's it. These are some fantastic blades. I'd encourage you to pick them up if you're able to. BadgerStateBlades.com. Again, I'll put a discount code in the description that you can use for 10% off your order. Thanks for watching, and happy whittling.